Okay, so here we go. I think that's everybody. So this recording, as I'm recording it for y'all, this is Spark Your Strengths, and we are in April, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous, it's the 4th month of the year. And which is exciting. And also like a quarter of the year is done. So that makes me think of where I'm aiming my strengths and what I'm doing with my time and all the things. But what I'd love to do is go around. You're getting used to each other. Some of you know each other really well, but some of you don't. And I'd love for you to experience the intersection. And so we are working on strengths. How many of you are ready for more volume control? Diagnosing weakness, I think, was what I promised you for tonight. So we're going to be talking about that. And so let's do a little check-in. So say your name, anything you want to say about who you are in your life, and a curiosity about one of your themes that you would like to explore in the Diagnosing the Weaknesses, or a puzzlement about your themes or something like that. But have your share be connected to your strengths and something that you're investigating, looking into, curious about. Okay, let's start my top left-hand corner, which is Laura.
I'm Laura. I'm in West Texas. I found Kate for business coaching because I am in a social selling company and I'm wanting to grow and be able to relate to my team and my leaders better and attract cool people in too. And okay, a curiosity that I have about one of my themes. Activator and maximizer are two of my top strengths. And I'm kind of sitting with, it's funny because I had a call with Kate today. We were talking a little bit about some of this, but I'm curious, I think, about maybe turning the volume down on those two, like just a tad. So I don't feel like I have to like rush into things or like respond right away, but I'm playing with allowing and creating myself more space to like zoom out and have the bigger picture and sit with things before just jumping in like the activator maximizer wants to do.
Awesome, great example. I love obviously the zoom out because that is what allows us to do that. But picking the moment to zoom out, and really hard to do for me when my activator's rolling. There's not a whole lot of zooming. There's a lot of like, go. So it's not the moment that I'm the most expansive in my perspective, but that's me. That is so great. Great share. Thank you, Laura. All right, pick somebody else to go.
I'm going to pick Jamie.
Hi, Laura. Thanks. Jamie, I haven't been here very long, so I don't know very many people. And my strength that I want to tone down the volume on right now is achiever, because it's killing me right now. That's my number one strength, and it like almost spiraled me into a depression this last week. So I needed to pull back with things that aren't in my control that I think I need to have in my control, or things that I did accomplish, and then the person didn't have the same thrill of that accomplishment. And it just makes me like spin out of control. Cause like now I'm like, why did I even do that? What am I doing anymore? Like, so
yeah,
it needs to calm down.
Oh, so awesome. So awesome. So this is a great example. So I love, there's two things of this. Achiever, so we'll dig into achiever in a bit, but it's what gives us that reward and that cookie and that sense of meaning and purpose and accomplishment with achiever, especially when other people don't get that or skip over it, or we're fine to the next goal. But there is something when, if there's any sense that it didn't land on the mark or the effort wasn't appreciated. How many of you can relate to that? Not that that's what you were saying necessarily, Jamie, but that sounds like it.
No. Yeah, no. Okay. That's part of it. That's one aspect. There's like 5 aspects that affected me this week, but yes, that is definitely one of them. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, awesome. Thank you. And pick somebody else.
Michelle.
I love what you just said about achiever, because I have two people in my life who are number one achievers, and I don't think about very often, but that cookie and the recognition, I need to remember that. Really need to keep that in mind. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm from Northern Virginia. And Kate, what year, how long have we known each other?
I love my time hop because I feel like we
I
just
know.
out a lot.
I know.
Did we meet? We met in Alexandria the first time, right? In person?
Physically, yes, physically. But first, we got to know each other online with Spark when doTERRA brought Strengths Online as a tool.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's been 4 years. I've done all the things. And my question about my connectedness, my number 2, is it really a thing sometimes? Like sometimes I think, I know this is connected, but I'm starting to wonder now. I doubt myself sometimes when really weird things go on. And yeah.
Weird things like synchronicity, or weird things like, am I mismatching the connections?
Sometimes I wonder if I'm mismatching connections, if I'm picking up on something that isn't actually connecting. But also, quick example, I saw somebody I haven't seen in years at the grocery store. She was telling me her diverticulitis issue, and I just got this sense of like, you need to apologize to your mom. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know where that came from. And I'm high empathy too. So I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, that definitely.
As she was talking though, she did say to me, well, my mom's 92 and she just calls me and worries about me. And I was like, oh my God. Was that just a weird like moment, or is that really a thing for me? I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, because if the decision about that, if you decide to trust that knowing or test it, will be, do I turn the volume up on that or do I turn the volume down? Right?
and do I speak it, right? Like,
I say it out loud.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Beautiful. Okay, can you pass the microphone?
Oh, Candace.
So wide, so much, so many. I also met with Kate today. So I am feeling I'm feeling all the feels. Do you guys notice that? You meet with Kate and then you get off and like, there's just all the feels are there. It's almost, it's, it's not in a negative way, but I definitely feel all the feels. So
Did I fire hose you today?
Do what?
Did I fire hose you today? Okay. I'm
That's just from today.
To turn the volume down right now.
That was just, no, you're not allowed. No. And the other thing is it's so funny because this person has been on my heart, but God brought someone into my life that, and Sandy and Laura, I think you guys, and Kate, you guys have heard, and Julie, you guys have heard this story, but he put someone in my life that I knew was going to be in my life. And then he told me they were not going to be there for very long. And there was a vision in the midst of it. And that was one of the visions that massively came true, is about her husband. Anyway, the love I have for this person is so intense. And Jamie, you are her doppelganger. So when you came on the screen, I was like, I'm reading Jamie because I'm like, that's Shannon. Like, why is Shannon in here with Kate? No, it's Jamie. And then the way you talk, the way you laugh, I'm like, so my whole heart is now totally feeling the feels. So if I act more like I know you than I should, Jamie, it's because you are Shannon's doppelganger. And there are times when you walk through, like Kate talks about, and I'm sure all of us have heard this, the 5 that's in your room at the end of your life. Like I was in Shannon's, like she didn't die, but it was that kind of life, like dirty underwear in the bathroom floor, like there. And so you look just like her. Like, my mind is blown. So in the context of the this, I'm not spinning, I'm excited, I'm not, but I know that there are many other of the strengths that show up in similar ways, right? And I want to know more about what those are, because the ones that I don't have, like, are oftentimes like kind of integral in holding people in a certain fashion, not driving them away, creating. So my bottom, let's just like go from 34 up. Includer, like that definitely is correct. Like harmony, not high on my list. Don't care for harmonious. Context, nope, that kind of goes with that whole minutia. Woo, nah. No. Connectiveness, nope. Adaptability, it really should be right there with 34. So yeah.
Awesome. The beauty of connectedness being in your bottom 5, since it's my number freaking 1. And like, I know I'm like, you're like, I'm not seeing that. I'm like, connect the dot. And you're like, Kate, I don't got it. Tell me a story. And I'm like, okay, great. You know, I have to like come in. So it's beautiful. It's such a great match. It's such a great match. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
As we meet in the middle and you teach me where the other ones that is that. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. We will, you can use any of your strengths. So it's going to be, what is the volume control on mine so that I can create that impact, and then getting clear on what impact am I making up people who have these bottom 5 have that I think I'm not creating. So we'll have to, we'll have to apply a story to examine intention and impact, because you're not missing anything. You just, sometimes won't, be interested in some of the other things, but you're all about the synchronicity, and you're all about you have this. I just am shocked it's in your bottom 5. I really am. So we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out. That's a flaw of the test, obviously. So, okay, go ahead and pass the mic.
Julie Dodd.
So I have a couple of curiosities, and one, I don't know if it really matters, but my question is, are we looking for diagnosing weakness, like overuse stuff, or are we also looking for like an underuse of a strength, or does it matter?
So our process that we're going to learn tonight of diagnosing weakness is it an overuse, an underuse, or a blind spot?
Okay.
So it's like diagnosing, not just looking for overuse patterns, because that would be very limited and a way to villainize ourselves. It's like, oh, I must be too much. I must be too much, or I must have overshot that. I must have, I was less self-aware. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes you're working so hard to look for an overuse pattern that some of either your strengths, or what I call the rest of the board of the directors that you have, like in your top 15, they haven't been invited to the table. And you're so used to being in that top 5 that you don't even check in of what would it be like if I led with number 9.
Okay. Thank you. That helps.
Yeah.
So my curiosity is my developer, which is number 3 for me. And I'm realizing I hide my developer. So like, there's a lot of curiosity around, I'm noticing some of the whys, but also like what developer looks like when it comes out to play, and how people receive developer and experience that.
How people see developer. Yes. That shows this is a well-processed woman who has attended the real leap. I love this language. It's so great. That's so great. All right. The real leap helps us look at impact for those of you. Okay. Awesome. Okay, cool. And Candy.
Sandy.
I'm all about it.
Sandy Bath, Lander, Wyoming. I always say I'm a self-employed idiot, but I shouldn't say that anymore. I've been self-employed my whole life. My family's been self-employed, so we're on a new path now. Anyway, last week I about had a meltdown. I don't know if you saw me kind of unplug because Sandy did not feel intelligent. Sandy was uber tired. I'm talking to myself in third person. I was extremely tired last week. And it's funny because all I could think when we broke out in the groups was, please let me have candy. Please let me have candy. And then of course I didn't, and it was fine. It was great. And so, but I needed to talk to Candy so she could break it down to me because I was stuck. And I know that this happens, but I have no idea, Kate, what that is. And then Candy reminded me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Candy, that I'm really high in adaptability. And you said something about that adaptability and how I feel my way through the world. And I get stuck if I don't know it. And I know that I'm Taurus, Mercury in Taurus, which means that I'm very slow and steady in the learning process when I don't get something, if I don't get it super quick. And I totally was like ramming my head against a wall, like, I'm nothing. So I would like to just figure out what that is, where that is, and who's driving the damn bus when that happens, because I don't like that driver.
So you have adaptability at what number?
Hold on, I have it pulled up. Adaptability is number 4.
And a maximizer is number
5.
5. Yeah, girlfriend. That is exactly what last week was. And so, yes. So maximizer has a certain expectation of the fluidity and the flow. And so when we can't touch the faucet to adjust the water flow, or some things are conceptually, if it's too conceptual, it's too hard. If it's too in the other direction, it can be too rigid. But maximizer needs to steer that with the adaptability to control the learning and the edge of that. It's very rare to have those two together, PS. I've only had a couple people out of 15,000 hours. And so, but it is
I'm special, Kate.
Very special.
Very special.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that you named that, because we're all like in learning of the strengths. It's like, oh, it's super good to know what pushes people to that edge of that, like whether in the learning, because this is a couple of things about this practice and my work. This is a community of practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a community of practice. Lots of tools, lots of learning. I have a very complex tool bag of mind, heart, and gut, all kinds of things, the neuroscience, the strength. Like we do a lot here. And I shower hose you, and I want you to just take the wetness that came, that stayed on your body, and that's the wetness you have. And then as we, like I'll hose you off in a minute, and that's how wet you are, and then you'll dry and you'll come back and I'll hose you off again, and eventually you'll be clean. But they're just joking. But do you know what I mean? Like literally it's just, it's like immersion. You're going to take some of it, but you can't take all of it. And you have to swim here for a while, and it can be tricky because what we're doing is so advanced. It's the highest level leadership development you will find anywhere in terms of what we're teaching. It's the same thing we teach to the executives at, pick a 30-second floor somewhere. This is what they're learning. And I'm trying to make it accessible for anybody to do in their own format, using my personal space to get there. So knowing that we're choosing this language, we also can teach all of this without the strengths language, PS. Sometimes I do that. But it's so profound. Like even today, I got a call from 5 years ago, one of the largest staffing companies in California, and they're having me come back. They're having me come back like for their sales and marketing team, because these seeds that we do when we have this holistic conversation, they don't stop thinking about it year after year after year. So even though they may not even be ready for all of the work, you may not be ready for all that's here. Some of you will journey really closely with me and really want to grow and develop that and have that mastery. And some of us will just make our situation a little better or get a little awareness and move on to some other types of learning, because there's lots of teachers there, and all of that's okay. But what we're trying to do is in this immersion is is get some of these foundations down and keep trying them on in bites until we're able to really understand how it's made from, and hopefully creating some ease at some point. But it's normal. It's normal to hit walls in it. Everybody hits a wall. I hit walls too. Okay, cool. All right. Any other strengths? So I'm going to use the ones that we have here. Any other strengths that you've been noodling on? Because I had you talk about one.
Empathy.
Empathy. Okay. All right, awesome. Okay, so diagnosing weakness. I'm going to show you just, even though most of you have this in the Strength Strategy Drive, there is a worksheet, and here we go. So we're going to do this just like we would in a workshop. So you're going to be working through, and I'll share a couple examples in here. So if you can see this to the right here, your primary strengths are and they're just showing here in your top 7. It's really your top 7 to 10. Then your secondary strengths are those that go up to 15. And then the blind spot and area of non-strength is 16 to 34. With the bottom 5 being like, how do people function that have that? Or you may have a sense of like, I feel like I'm really lacking something. I look at that bottom 5. 34 for me is adaptability. I super admire it in the people around me because I'm reaching for it. And I am flexible. I'm intentionally flexible, but it does not come with ease. And sometimes it comes with anxiety because I'm efforting to create that flow. So embracing your weakness, which is one of the classes that we've done, is just like, have to acknowledge I have weakness. And if I don't fight the fact that I know what I am, I know what I'm not, and both are okay, like it really is okay that you have a blind spot. No matter where you go in the world, you will have a blind spot. You can't possibly learn all 34 themes and expect to move into the world and know enough. You will always have to be checking in for what you're not hearing and cultivate a way of being and a curiosity about what else might be happening that you're not aware of. And the more comfortable you are with your own weakness and the less judgmental you are, the more curious you will be able to be in the moment. And the more you will notice when other people are not listening or curious outside of how they perceive the world to be. Does that make sense? How many of you can feel energetically? We'll just start with that. You can tell when there isn't an openness, or they're talking to you, or they're talking at you, or the way they're telling a story is like pigeonholed. It's like this very singular narrative. And sometimes they're using a hammer and they're like using that same hammer everywhere, and it's not actually working. And I'm like, wow, it's like at some point you hope they stop, but it's that same hammer. This is the one way that they do everything. And it's actually not having the impact that they want, but they haven't learned to use the other tools in the bag. That's okay. Then when your strengths, this little picture here, you can see where you get out of balance. It's usually sometimes there's a need to control. I need to look good. I need to be comfortable. I need to be right. Sometimes that's a driver for those 4 horsemen. But sometimes when our strengths are out of balance, or it's our way of, that's how we survive. That's how we get things started. It's how we whip things into shape. It's how we try to demonstrate care and prove that we're caring. It's how we avoid conflict. It's how we avoid challenging conversations, which aren't necessarily conflicting, but may have too much vulnerability in them. All strengths looking at a balance have they have a different aroma. empathy out of balance doesn't look like activator out of balance, for instance, right? Those are very different. So it's important for us to know, and you'll hear me say what my show is. It's important for me to know when I'm in overuse, what that looks like. And it's also important for me to know when I'm in overuse, which parts of myself have I not tested? What are some other ways to come to the same conversation or the same situation? So what I want you to do is to pick an area, pick a situation of something that's frustrating for you right now. Just take some time. Pick an area that's frustrating. I want you to be able to articulate what's frustrating in your breakout room in a moment.
Is this only for the one strength that we were talking about, or it can be any of them?
It could be any. I'm going to make sure I cover these particular ones. So, but it's likely tied to the one that you mentioned because that's the one you brought forward. But it's helpful to have a context or a story to be able to examine. So if you, like this past week with the spiral, if you could pick one ingredient from that, you know, one person, one frustration in one situation, so that you can look at all of your strengths, but we will tune into achiever tonight, so that making sure that we clarify what that is. Because it's achiever interacting with one of your other talents that's likely frustrated. It's always a combination. So think about what was frustrating, and then think about what your response to that frustration was. Don't worry about strategic interdependence. I'm not covering that tonight, so don't worry about that. It's too big for this particular class.
If I'm not frustrated, what am I supposed to pick?
Well, there's nothing frustrating. Fantastic. Can you pick a past event just for the learning? Or when you get into your breakout room, support the other person with their frustration.
Okay.
And then think about what you're wanting and what your objective is in the situation. So I'll give you an example. Let's pick one together. So like Jamie, she's gone. Let's pick a scenario. Oh, here she is. Let's do yours for a second as an example, and then I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. So
Okay, my pencil. I was looking for a pencil.
Okay, cool.
So my frustration. So I guess one of the first things that triggered me this week. So I was supposed to have 2 days off because my kids were on spring break. So I didn't take it off, and I took off like half a day each day because one of my clients, so I work in digital marketing. I do Google Ads and SEO for them, and we scaled them to their first $1 million month. Their ad campaigns are like through the roof. They just did like 380,000 in Google Ads, and they've never done anything close to that. SEO, we 4x'd their revenue, all that, and they came basically. It slowed down a little bit over Easter, right? So they were like, they had all this momentum. And then of course, from Easter, everything kind of slowed down. So they started, of course, hounding us and writing emails to us. And even the other agency that I work with literally wrote something bad about me behind my back, saying at least this person that we fired could get us to page 1 for this keyword and all this other stuff after we had just like gave them this booming month. And I mean, this is after a week of things like YouTube ads. Google changed something on YouTube ads. I got the accounts to bounce back, but I mean, I've spent so many hours on with Google reps, with things like that, where I was already like in this kind of low self-esteem thing because everything has always worked for me. I'm in this like awful I put myself with these impossible expectations that I should always be able to control everything, and I should always be able to perform the best possible. And so then when things, I notice I can handle that better when I have other things that are all going right, And then when all the things that were going right, all of a sudden I was getting all this negative feedback from, I was just like, whoa, I'm done. Like, I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted, I've put in all this effort and I'm done. And I wanted to just like write something mean back, and I didn't do anything because I'm the type of person that'll lay down and let you walk all over me before I say something mean to you. But like, yeah, so so I feel like that sent me spinning this week. That was the first moment that sent things spinning.
Okay, awesome. This is a perfect example. And so, Jamie, can you put your strengths in the chat? And then I'm going to ask Julie Dodd to clarify. I'm going to fill in this box here of what's frustrating. Can you recap and extract out of what Jamie said and tell me what the frustration was? What did you hear?
I hear a lot of moving pieces, high expectations.
From the client. Mm-hmm.
And self, I feel like I hear some of that. I'm looking at the strengths too. They just popped up.
Okay.
Yeah, even just reading through those. So like, what else do I hear?
So we're looking for what's frustrating. So like out of that, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's high expectations from the client, high expectations of self.
And then I hear the breakdown. There's a breakdown of the process, which is causing a delay and causing, like you mentioned, the negative feedback. So negativity, maybe as a generality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Michelle Dunn, what else do you hear?
Well, I mean, I'm just seeing her going up, and her shoulders are going up, and she's animated, and she's talking really fast. So I'm seeing more than I'm hearing from her, probably.
Okay.
And she's frustrated. She's upset that she didn't get that cookie. She worked really hard. She worked really, really hard.
Not appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, the opposite happened. Not only was there a lack of appreciation, there was judgment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm working this hard. I'm working on time I didn't have available even. And it's like, what was that worth? I sacrificed more than I had, and then it wasn't appreciated even, right? So do you hear all of those things? Is that accurate, Jamie? Like you're above and beyond, fell flat. Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. Then, Candy, what was Jamie's response to the frustration?
Well, your kids can hear me, right, Jamie?
Yes, they can.
Okay. Use the children filter.
I'm trying. Sandy's like dying over there. You said it, but you didn't say it the way I was going to throw it. Just because I wanted that impact of throwing it.
I shooed them.
Are they shooed? So what I heard you say is not what you said, but I think it's what you meant, is you're usually able to pull it out of your ass when it starts going sideways. And it was really high. So you're still kind of riding that high. And when it went sideways, you're usually able to, in some way, shape, or form, achieve the hell out of it, right? To pull it out of your ass, to make it come around the other way. And it didn't do that this time. And so the frustration was that there was no twisting it to make it happen in the way that it normally happens. And then all the rest of it it's all there, just kind of kept falling all apart. It was like a beautiful sandcastle that when you went to grab it, it had disintegrated. That's what I heard. or saw. I guess I saw it, heard it, felt it.
Jamie, does that land?
Yeah, a little bit. There were aspects of things, I guess, out of my control. But like in this particular instance, everything had landed and it still didn't matter. But there were definitely other instances that I did refer to, like the YouTube ads and things like that, that I was dealing with that were out of my control and going sideways. And so I was constantly putting out the flames, you know? So yeah, so I do think in that way it does land.
So what I heard in the response to the situation was she froze for a minute because, you know, choosing not to be unkind or to betray your own integrity. Like you didn't want to stoop to their level. Is that right? You didn't want to stoop to the negativity. Okay.
I literally did not confront it at all.
Okay. Even though you were justified to. Okay. Awesome. So
And that's a huge pattern for me.
What's that?
I said, and that is a huge pattern for me.
Okay. So you're like, freeze. Okay. So this is dependence on this diamond here. We're not covering the diamond tonight necessarily. It may come up, but it's dependence when we go into compliance mode or we don't address it, we feel oppressed by that. We're in dependence inside of this. So it's in that toxic triangle at the bottom. And we all do this. Thank you, Jamie, for going first. But like we all get into dependence in some places. And our goal here is to help us get out of it faster. That's why we meet. And that's why it's a community of practice. So our goal is to be in our conscious resilience stuff is like, we're moving out of these faster, but we need to know, it's like, yeah, I totally shut down and I felt tenuous and I felt out of control. There's no way to fix it. Don't even like those people. Now I'm questioning my life's purpose. And why do I even do this job? Like if you spiral into the fear zone, we have to expand that for a minute. Jamie does that beautifully. Did you hear that? She's like, expand it. Like life makes no sense now. Like you need a minute to just say that and like stretch it into the worst of like, it went from this thing of like, I can't meet expectations for myself and others into nothing makes sense. Why do I do this? I just want to be with my kids anyway. Like, you know what I mean? But if you can stretch into that and let the emotions come and just like freak out for a second, it's actually really healthy to do that. And then eventually you'll notice you don't go as far down the rabbit trail as you might have before. But it's a really healthy way. Just expand the state that you're in. Like, I hated it. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. Boom. And then Jamie, what are you wanting? If we waved a magic wand, what's the perfect scenario that could have come out of this?
The perfect scenario would be.
What are you wanting?
I guess it would be that person who started to talk badly because he does know that I know, because literally the other agency said we shared your email. so he knows I know. And just maybe acknowledge that maybe he said something that was unkind, and that, you know, maybe after looking at the previous month reports, referring to them or coming to talk to me about it so I could walk him through all the results if the freaking dollar signs don't do the talking, which they should. Yeah, it's just understanding. I think that's a great way to put it. Come to an understanding.
That's great. So there's acknowledging is really, really important in that, which is great. So now in here, if we kept going with this, which you'll do in the breakout rooms, we think about what's getting in my way from initiating that conversation. What's getting in my way? And so if I look up your strengths. So, dun, dun, dun. So if you saw a possibility with that futuristic ideation, if you saw a possibility of a positive outcome available, And you could anchor into like, I can create a different scenario here. I can create and manifest an unprecedented possibility in here. And I'm committed enough to the relationship with this client or my team, or like I'm so committed to that, that will pull me into having more difficult conversations. If I don't need the business, I don't like doing the work anyway, it's really hard to enroll somebody with high belief into that if that's not naturally there. So like if this was like part of my mission, so I'm staying in it with this person because of who I want to be and I care about this work, we can access some of our other strengths or even some of the relationship talents, which I imagine are in 11 through 15. Isn't that accurate? Jamie, what are your 11 through 15?
My 11 through 15 are almost all relationship, I think. I have like connectedness in there. I have positivity in there.
Yeah. So if I'm right about this and I choose to be right about this breakdown, that means the way I'm telling the story is the only way that it is, because the numbers don't lie, and that's the email. You are technically right. Like we can't like analyze that when it's analytics. You are right. But if I just decide to be right and I don't without having high relationship strengths in your top 10, it may not be energizing for you to you'd have to really reach back there to want to create some other kind of connection and relationship with them, because this is a relationship that's based on task. It's a contract. If it was a personal relationship, we could probably pick a similar example in your personal life. You would have it would be a very different exercise in understanding what is being underused here. But do you guys get it? Like how the professional context and the personal context, you have different rules of operating. So when you think about, am I willing to access some of those underused strengths? Am I willing to dig deeper? And you will, if you have something at stake in the relationship, if there's money, time that you've invested, or deep care, you will do the work. If you hate the work, if there's no money in it and there's no return on that relationship, really hard to do this exercise. So pick something that you have some at stakeness for, because really to go through the mental labor when you don't care, it would be less effective. Does that make sense? It's just not, you're not gonna be able to dig deep into some of what might be possible in there in the underuse, unless you really want it to work out. And if you believe it works out, you'll have more resource to do the learning. Now, the next page is looking at what your strengths want to contribute. And then when you think of them on a scale of 1 to 10, what you imagine the volume is of that theme. So if we did Jamie's in here, you would just put them all down. Now, something I do here for myself is I have index cards, and I put my top 15 on index cards for this, and I place them on the floor, and I move my body while I'm doing this, because I find I have more access if I do my body. If I just sit here and do mental labor, it's less, I don't get into it as much. I just need a somatic piece of that.
You get your energy flowing.
I thank you, Sandy. Yes, I have to have the energy flowing. I can't do it from here. And so we call it strengths geography. I also place my index cards in different windows in my house or different geographic locations at my own house, so that I'm staring at something different every single one. And I find that really helps me to shift space and then come into a new mindset wherever those are. And so this example of achiever, what does it want to contribute? So what tool do you need to grab in order to be able to answer this? What tool will you need if you're going to do this worksheet? Anybody?
The strength strategy guide.
The reference guide, 34 theme reference guide. It's everywhere, but I'm going to link it again. Who needs a copy of it tonight to be able to do this? Okay, let's open up. I'm going to give you the Drive link where both of these are.
For some reason, I bought my big book and it has all of it. I don't know why.
I was just going to ask you, Sandy, what is that book? Did you create that, or is that something you bought?
Oh no, this is Kate's thing. This is
This
all
is
the
the
classes.
minutia. This is minutia. This is
I need to create-
beautiful,
I need to create
gorgeous,
something like that.
organized.
No, I have to. I lose my mind. I have umpteen million of these. I actually need bigger discs. This is called a Levenger system because it's busting out at the seams.
I'm literally excited that you just showed that.
It's really, I love it. I do it for all my different classes and everything. And then you can, what's really nice, you can tear out pages and then put them back in.
So
very cool.
So what was the question about Achiever?
this is the strength strategy theme, Jamie, this one right here that has all the details. So that when you click that link. Okay. And if you want to use the diagnosing weakness one, it's in here. Diagnosing weakness tool.
You just put that one on a few weeks ago, didn't you?
I did. So she's looking at, so the achiever question is, what is achiever contributing? How is it contributing to that spiral was her question. That's how I heard it. So as we examine, as we examine, like, what does it want to contribute and what volume was it? This is how you know if it's that theme. So Jamie, achiever wants to contribute. If we open this up, it's goal-driven, hardworking, persistent, focused on completion, driven, willing to go the extra mile, ho, 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 invites clarification around goals, targets, and measures of success. All over the story, right? Your achiever is like, what volume is it on 1 to 10?
It's a 10.
Yeah, it's all the way. All the way. Now achiever has a certain energy at 10 because there's a precision to that. It's aimed, boom. And
yeah, it feels really unhealthy at 10.
So here's what it needs. Now, if it's an overuse, sometimes that's because these are not met. So it needs to know and have goals, clear success measurement. Obviously, there's like some lack of definition in that people are blind to what our wins were. It needs autonomy. It needs others to be hardworking, to have hard work noticed and celebrated, willingness of others to be persistent, to stay in the face of failure. Interesting. An accountability process to keep everyone else accountable. When it's triggered, falling short of completion, undefined success measures. Holy cow, is that one here or what? So you can see it's like, and not having its needs met. I could argue that the situation that created it, achiever, was at 10, but because none of those needs are met, achiever is like 4 and starving. So it's not actually, there's no wins there, so it's not really being used. So it would be underused. So that's, and then how it really showed up, well, it's like,
That makes more sense to me, because when you read what's strategic, when you add in the strategic, because I believe achiever was underused, that makes more sense to me.
Because it's number 1, we oftentimes always see that one present. It's like our lens. But looking here, so one of my coaching colleagues said today, he uses the word anticipation. anticipatory, that strategic is anticipating. And it's not how I've ever related to my strategic. So I'm like, tell me the rest of your strengths again, because I don't really know him well. And he's in the UK, and it's like anticipatory. So strategic is anticipating what's going to happen. And if it wasn't able to successfully do that, like others, not being valued inside of that, I don't see these overused here. So, but you just have to look, it's like the strengths dynamic of those two together might be creating that frustration. Yeah. Because you can't fix it. You can't resolve it. They're being ridiculous. So it's like achiever and strategic are like, I don't even know how to play here since there's no logic occurring. Right?
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants to look at the actual numbers. You're just going to be dramatic and be emailing behind my back.
Yeah.
Like, life is too short for that. I don't. Goodbye.
Yeah, it's the two to play. Like it created that ball that like I can't outthink this because it doesn't. Like there's no strategic way I can achieve my way out of this because it is ridiculous. That's exactly like I was saying. You couldn't pull it out. You normally can, but it was so ridiculous. How do you pull that out? Because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You were unappreciated by somebody who was absolutely ignorant to everything that was going on.
Awesome. Laura, can you coach Jamie through identifying the next 2 volumes and just in with your own curiosities and what you hear, and I'll click where you tell me to go.
So this would be like, this is her next.
So we want to,
achiever.
what are these? Yeah. What was happening with these strengths?
I feel a little lost at how to do this, Kate.
Yeah, that's why we're practicing. So for instance, you would ask her what number was strategic.
Okay.
Look at strategic is trying to recover quickly here. So is it able to actually do that? No.
No.
So then what number might that be for you, Jamie?
I would say like a 2 probably.
Okay. You want to help
my
her?
brain's still trying to do it, but
yes, you're trying. So it's like, yeah. Great. And so then with the next one, so how this would work if you're helping somebody, it's like you could all you would do if you were sitting with somebody, which you will in a second, if you want to, is basically futuristic. You just go over here to the sheet. What does futuristic want to do? And then you ask the person that you're sitting with to literally just come to the paper and read it to you. That's all you have to do, because they're always going to know less than you. So it's like, okay, what does futuristic want to do? And you can even take, I don't think it's going to let me highlight. Ooh, maybe it will. I don't want to highlight all of it though. I need a keyboard shortcut. No, it won't work. Okay, so creative, imaginative, like this is futuristic. Jamie, any of these feeling like, oh, I wish I could have put that there?
yeah, I feel like my futuristic wants to be there. Like it wants to come up with an interesting way to resolve it. Like it's constantly seeking something new and different in ways to solve things.
So like, so a tactic that futuristic is able to do would be just pick up the phone, just pretend that we were doing this. And it's like, when there's a real connection in a conversation, sometimes all of the BS that happened in the emails, because people are like, oh, I got caught with my pants down, shouldn't be saying those things. And so in that moment, I'm like, wow, I hear so much frustration here. Tell me about your frustration. What did you notice? And then I'm able to sit with somebody in that frustration instead of dancing around and avoiding it or somewhere in that blame. And if I care enough about them or I want the contract, then I'm like, okay, like what's going on here? What are you seeing? What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? Like, well, I'm like, can we just open a bottle of champagne for last month, please? Like, can we just do that? Because last month we killed it. And I'm so here with you, but I really feel like we should have had champagne first. And people lighten up in that, like your futuristic can create that if I know what I want from that. It's like I feel like we should have celebrated, or maybe I'm going to embed celebration into my analytical relationship because it matters to me that they don't miss that. And so I'm going to send balloons or when we hit those numbers, or so imagining like what other creative way would be there. And so if futuristic it wants to do that, but it hasn't figured out how to get out of dependence yet. What volume might futuristic be at?
I don't know. I think futuristic is pretty hungry. So, I don't know, let's say a 6.
Mm-hmm. So are you actively using it to come up with another way how you're going to handle it right now?
Yeah, I mean, he went on vacation this week while I didn't go on when I used less of my vacation to try to,
Right.
fix and make everything all better. So I have been unable to. So that's why I'm kind of stuck. But it's definitely one of those things where I've thought about
Mm-hmm.
approaches and how maybe I can walk him through everything and show him step by step everything.
Yeah.
And just try to appeal to the logical side. But I think the other part of me knows people that are very hungry and can't really be satiated with certain things that isn't going to work. Like that's not going to be enough, because I'm not sure there isn't enough. So
right. So it's possible there's not an enough. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's possible. Maximize knows this more than anybody. Like it's like whatever, like there's a bar there that we're not going to hit, so we don't even want to play. And so that would be a 10 when Maximizer gets into that. I'm not gonna be able to hit that bar. I don't want to play. And because it's driving for excellence, it wants excellence. Let's look over here at Maximizer. And I'm moving through this kind of quickly because I want to make sure you all know how to use it. And then I want you to be able to go and do it. So knowing that we're driven to be our best, there's perfection in there, excellence. We take the average to superb. We need excellence, efficiency, willingness of others to tweak and change. Do you see that? Like that is not happening with them. Mm-mm. It's not happening. So in the overuse, there could be this sense of never good enough, doing things to excess and not balancing well, like working on vacation. So, right, all of those things. So this one would be in that maximum. I would say this could be a 9 or 10.
So it wasn't the achiever that was getting me, it was the maximizer.
And the more you can understand the drive, like achievers, the close the loop, maximizer is more, it's the process of that, the willingness to go above and beyond. Some like achiever is driving to do that, but the inner conversations, the criticism, frustrating when others are focusing on weakness. This is the exact trigger that you brought up today. It is a maximizer trigger, which is good to know. Mm-hmm. What happened? Yeah, Sandy.
Are we ever driven? That part of that cycle thing was the bottom 5, the blind spot, and the bottom 5, like we can't even imagine, or part of that 16 through 34. Yeah. Do we ever get so screwed up that backstories that we have in our life that we trail down, do we get stuck in any of those sometimes, out of curiosity?
Stuck in them in what way? Like,
well, I mean, we know that people tell themselves a lot of stories, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we're moving through things in life, they can happen via at work because we're telling ourselves a story. So we've got our top. Does anybody ever get stuck in their bottom stuff that they're not, I don't know.
Yeah.
The subconscious mind really can work amazingly, that we can get stuck. Is it always with the top, or is it somewhere in the middle, or can it be in the bottom?
Most people that so you had like all 34, like if you obsessed about your number 34 strength and just understood that talent, you could fake it and try to use it. It would be efforted, but you can try to use it. It's not going to be natural for you, but it doesn't mean that you can't put that hat on and do the job, right?
Okay.
Like for instance, high adaptability. I could go work in a fast-paced restaurant and flow with it all day and just react to everything that's there. It's going to be exhausting for me to do. It's not going to be energizing. But
Right.
I can flow with the adaptability of that. I can hang out with adaptability people and go with the flow for a short period of time. And then I'm like, like I'm done flowing. I'm ready to do stuff. What's our goal? And because I can't, I'm like literally like, don't you have a goal yet? Are we gonna have like, are we going anywhere? We're not going, we're going, oh, okay. Like I'm like now I'm anxious because it's not energizing for me to stay in there because it was a mask. It was a mask, which I am willing to do occasionally and try this on. The other thing that happens is when that blind spot is there, like for instance, I might see possibility in conversation. I might see possibility in conversation because of my strengths, that somebody who has my strengths in their blind spot wouldn't have access to that. It's not, it wouldn't drive them to create a possibility there. They would see the end of the road where I'm like, well, what about that? And they're like, I wouldn't, it's just not going to be natural to them. And in the vice versa, like my husband can be very decisive with his restorative, and he can stay with something and stay with it and stay with it. And I'm like, I feel like this has been going on for a long time. I don't know, like, are we still talking about that? And like, I'll tell you right now, it's about Sebastian has a sinus infection, and it's about, we just had Easter, and so there's sugar in the house. And I'm like, no candy. I kept him off candy all day. But when his dad walked in the door last night, he had a chocolate chip cookie that the lady at the farm stand gave him. And I'm like, it was like one of those moments where my husband is going to follow his restorative strength of making our bodies whole and our home organic. And I'm like, oh, like you had to walk in like right then while he's eating the cookie. Like there was no like, and I could see he just has the patience for that. This is the mission that he's on right now. And that restorative talent allows him. Well, restorative is like 29 for me. And like, I was totally committed to that until like the cookie, but like it stayed in there all day with no sugar with us until no sugar, like no, all of it until the cookie. So that's obviously not, that's a poor example, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, we need each other in those capacities. The other thing about blind spots is most people that I know, especially doing the diagnosing weakness, this is your preferred way to beat yourself over the head for who you think you're not. That's what the bottom 5 are. So actually, once we name them, when people take the strengths test, the most common question I get after thousands of hours of this is about that blind spot. They want to mitigate the weakness. They want to spend the energy fixing what they think they're missing. And they want to validate why they haven't achieved whatever markers in their business or in their life. They want to explain it using, well, I'm just not able to do that because you have this and I only have these. And so, and then in a moment where things aren't going well, then we're like, well, because I don't have adaptability. Well, it's because that was easy for you because you're that. And it was hard for me because I'm this. And that's the immature way to do strengths. It's where most people land. Most people don't want to move beyond that. They're like, I'm curious, and now I'm not done. Too hard. And if you really want that relationship, or you want your team or your business, or you're committed to have a new experience and be able to dance in conflict and in your goals and understand people and know when to feed a need and know when it's something you can truly improve on and when to set it down because you can't, then you're going to be willing to sit with some of this, and because you're going to have to make it your own. You actually use a worksheet all the time. It's all intuitive now, but I had to start using that worksheet until it was intuitive. And it was tedious and felt like minutia to fill out these teeny tiny worksheets. And none of the colleagues that I worked with enjoyed learning from these worksheets. And my team that I did my coaching training with was global. So my partner was in New Zealand, in Egypt, and let's see. Oh, the other one was moving, but she was just Arab. And so it was very challenging to see that globally we're all having this, and it worked globally. It worked in every culture, and it was a common way we could like have a bond to be able to really support people. And so I still use the worksheets because of that, because it has never let me down in any consulting capacity globally. And the more you just own that you have a blind spot and you may be the last person to see it, that just helps you to listen a little differently in some of those scenarios. We really can't do breakouts because we're out of time. But I hope that we got through this worksheet. I just want to encourage you to complete it, like sit with yourself, do the index cards. I do have a couple appointments tomorrow. I have some openings. If you haven't had one and you're like, hey, I'd actually like to really process through that, let me know. And or next week is fine, but I want to know if you can't, like, what are you doing? If you're not doing this, what are you doing to help yourself do this dance with your strengths? We're going to be doing volume control again and again because it's not, it's really hard to tease it apart without a specific scenario. So like you really need to come up. So I want to know as we close, what scenario did you pick and that you will be applying this to this week? So I'll start with Julie Dodd. Which story did you pick?
I'm like, don't pick me, because I'm still like, the scenario that's present, but I'm not sure it fully fits to apply, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
Is a struggle with my kids this week and just friction with them.
And what are you wanting?
I'm wanting new tools. I'm wanting new creativity that I guess, like, I feel like we're hitting some walls.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there are other options. I just haven't figured them out that will help us move through them.
So you're seeing you're identifying what's getting in the way of having the new tools. Okay. Or, so it could be that you need to, sometimes what we recognize here is there's a new skill I need, because so if I have an underuse of strengths, what's the action step then? Is there a new skill that I need?
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to learn how to have crucial conversations? Like if it's avoiding a conversation, do I need to do some design thinking? Like I have a way to get through the maze of my emotions. Do I need, like figure out like what's wanted and needed there? Is it a new skill? Is it human connection? Do you need somebody to emotionally journey with you? Do you need to move your body? Like, so figure out what you're going to add to that to support yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody? Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Julie. Michelle, what did you pick?
I picked a recurring conversation with my mother in which she goes down the line of all my children and criticizes what they're doing and not doing. And my immediate response is defense.
Mm-hmm.
Or explaining, go into explaining, this codependence dance that we do. So I'm really wanting to hone in on that boundary skill, that ease of communication without moving into defensiveness, without moving into explaining, and just noticing, like, oh, and letting her feel how she feels. But I hold it in my body, and I want to get to the place of acknowledging her concern, because that's what it is. It's love and concern, and through her lens. But it hits me like a brick wall.
So which of your strengths is not able to play? What do you identify as an underuse?
I mean, I keep thinking it's my developer wants to come in there and say, you know what, this is a process. They're walking this road, you know, and I'm gonna let it. They're young adults. It's gonna play out how it plays out. That's the developer in me. Baby steps, you know. And I feel like it's just frustrated. It's not able to play
Mm-hmm.
because she's a maximizer. She wants them all to go big or go home.
It was fun meeting her, and then her revelation that you are not.
Oh yes.
Like her. That will
Yes.
be the moments I remember.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like, you're just like me. And Michelle was like, actually, no, literally her strengths
No.
are
Really not.
Yeah, just 50 years of research. So, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Love it. Cool. Laura, what did you pick?
I have a leader on my team who has been MIA for over a year and a half. Like nothing, not participating in anything, none of the things. And needing to have that crucial conversation with her and inviting her to get on a phone call. And there's big time avoidance every time, right? It's like, this is going on. This is going on. And that makes my activator maximizer feel bad because it wants to come out and play and have the conversation. It wanted to have this conversation a year ago. So really having to sit with connecting to relate instead of to control, because she can feel that energy, right? To bring that to the table. And that it's truly up to her. I can't force her to get on a phone call with me. So I can be there as a support, and am doing that. Her daughter has some hip issues, and I'm well versed as a PT and as a patient in hip issues. So holding space and supporting with that. And then also continuing to just invite, and hey, when you have a few minutes, I would love to have this conversation, and truly releasing any and all expectations around it.
Yeah.
Of like, if we never have the call, I'm going to be okay. If we do, great.
I love how you're holding both of those now. You know, like you're holding like I'm really clear. Wasn't that great self-management? Anyone else?
You sound amazing.
It's holding our power, like we're like our drive and our ability, and then also like and releasing all attachment. And it's like that. But you can do both. You totally can do both. It's just about what you choose in the moment. And
yes,
fine, right?
Because I realized I was putting so much energy on like mad and resentment, and I was like, she can feel that on some level, even if I'm not saying it. And there was a piece of me that was like, it's my business. The paycheck comes from doTERRA, not from me. So that's good. And I'm going to spend all that energy and go find a rock star leader. Bring that. I'm going to love you, and I'm here for you. But it's so funny, how the activator, like talking about crucial conversations, the activator's like here for it. It's like, let's do this. Like, we don't like the elephant in the, like, sweep it under the rug.
Here, naming what it wants of like, I want to run with you. I want to fly. I'm going to, you you have to let yourself feel all those things. For those of you to have, like, I wanted to win this month. I wanted to like acknowledge the urge and the energy, like don't squelch that of whatever that is. So then it can, expand all of that. And best case scenario, like in my dream, like we're just like doing this thing. I'm like, whoa. And then your whole life worked out. And then that, remember you wanted that? I'm like, I totally see that. I have all this energy. And then on the flip side, I'm over here going, how weird for you that I'm calling you with any type of hope or expectation. How weird it must be that I care so much about your goal more than you do. Like, acknowledging the awkwardness on their side, right? I'm like, how weird. I'm like so committed over here to this thing that we talked about a year and a half ago. And I'm like still in that dream. I don't even know if you're with me on the dream, but I'm like, I'm still like, day one, you said you're going to do it. And I've held you to that this whole time, even though we haven't talked in 18 months. It's still 1999, like over here, if that's when it started. And when we can acknowledge that, like, we're in this whole other time dimension with people, we totally are with any of these things. And like, it didn't work this month, like with Jamie's scenario. You're like, but were you here in February? Like, February was amazing. Like, were you there for that? Like, and we live in alternate universes with people, and they're not tracking with us. They're in a whole other experience of the same thing. And we have no idea what it looks like from where they are. But if we can say, like, if I rewind the date when we had a conversation 18 months ago, we were here and this was it. Do you remember that? So making sure that you're both seeing the same date, your calendars are synced.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if your calendars aren't synced, when you approach those conversations, you're like talking to them from the future or the past, and maximizer and activator like lost all sense of anything. Like, you're like, because they're always living in this universe where we're all doing the thing. Because who wouldn't want to? Because it's amazing.
I check in with her, but the thing that the response that I get is, well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. And the activator maximizer is like, we'll see. What does that mean?
That's ambiguous. That's not kind. Don't you watch Brene Brown? No, I'm joking.
Here's kind. Come on now. So yeah, so I'm really proud because I was really riled up for a while, and now I'm like,
yeah, I hear
girl, I see your actions. Like, you're telling me. I don't know why I need a verbalization of that. I think because I want to make sure that cognitively she understands that too. But I'm like, it's cool. I'll like lovingly have the invitation.
I think it's cool, but like, it's just, like some of those things. And the more you take yourself lightly, do you all feel that? Like, the more we take ourselves lightly, the more fun you can have in these conversations. Like, everyone's like, crucial conversation. I'm like, no, it's game on. We're going to connect and have intimacy and like create unprecedented possibility. My best business partnerships have been from absolute shit shows of like, I'm like, oh, the learning here is so good. I hate you. I hate you because you're nothing like me, and I'm growing, and I hate you because I'm growing.
You're my best teacher. Thank you.
Oh, I'm a teacher. No, teacher. And then I pendulum into, I am your best teacher. Because it's hard to stay on that thing. But like, literally, if we stay in and look for that unprecedented possibility, it's those moments when we anchor into our big why, when you know why you're in it with people, that all you can dance and create. If we're just in the transaction with people, there's no room for creativity, because I really don't care enough about you. I don't care enough about you to get into the creative part.
And so I was in that place for a long time.
Because that's not available here unless you check those boxes. I don't know how to access those, or I'm unwilling to access those unless you meet these parameters. That's what we do.
That was me for a while. And I was so grateful that you pointed that out to me, Kate. And now I catch myself.
Yeah.
Am I trying to control, or am I trying to relate with you?
Yeah. I think that one teaser, like, you've got so many of these distinctions. I can't wait to hear how that conversation goes. So, all right. Anyone else? Like, we got to wrap, but this was great tonight. This was great. Feel free to Marco Polo me with what your situation is. If you're really trying to apply it, I will coach you over Marco Polo to move this through. I also have a surprise for us. Next Wednesday.
It's not a cookie?
I really should do cookies, huh? I got to brand cookies into the brand.
You said that and I'm like, what's the cookie?
Oh yeah. Next Wednesday morning at 9:30, we are having a guest class called Enjoying Each Other's Differences, 9:30 Pacific in the morning, with my colleague Janet Kaleri. Janet has, she teaches on curiosity. In this class on exploring differences, it will be interactive. There's only 8 spots. So if you're committing to it, message me because I only want 8. I'm recording her doing it. There's a reason I only want, because I want her to have a full screen with nobody. I want her to be able to see everyone big. Janet has a really inspiring story. She had a traumatic brain injury type thing the beginning of last year, and literally shut down most of what's happening. She has rehabilitated herself. But prior to that, she does a coaching program where she helps people access curiosity during unbearable circumstances using a smartphone. So she uses photography and helping people start cultivating a lot of the same distinctions and languages that we use here, but in a very creative way. And I enjoy her as a human. And I asked her to come and do something on curiosity for us and exploring differences, because that's sort of what we're also all about in here. And like, how do you enjoy people that have that bottom 5? So that's 9:30. If you, anybody here committed right now?
9:30 Pacific.
Yeah, you gotta tell me what time that is.
It's 12:30 Eastern.
Yes. Okay.
Who else?
Me.
Sandy?
Another TBI stuffer? I'm totally in.
Okay. Okay, I'm sending you invites right now. Anybody else in here immediately?
Sandy raised her hands, but she's muted.
Yeah, I've got you too. I have
And
Candy.
then hour and a half, what are we doing?
I have her down for an hour, but like save 75 minutes.
Okay.
And if you can't
Oh,
come,
I can't.
yeah, it's it's a morning time, because she's in Central Time Zone, I think. And I am recording it, and there's a little PDF, and there's but to be live and have the shaping of what that conversation would be, let me know. So okay, we have 6 spots left. And I don't have, the Zoom number is not on the calendar invite yet, because I'm not sure if she wants to use hers, but I just sent you an invite. Okay, cool.
That's a
Right.
good cookie.
Yeah, you're gonna love her. She's super great.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Go take one courageous action after that diagnosing weakness exercise. It'll be super helpful. Meet your needs, honor your story. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.